Hi everyone, this is Ashish, and today we are going to cover the Azure Bicep module. Uh, we have already covered Azure Bicep module in one of the previous session, but now today what we are going to cover is using let me just share my screen. So using a private module registry. Before we continue discussing about this, let's have a look on the series, what we have covered so far. And in this series, just as a recap, we will go through all these individual sessions. So if you have not watched all the previous session, I will highly recommend you to go through that. We started this series with infrastructure as code, what exactly it is, how significant it is, and then we got into the Azure Bicep, then we covered the tooling and setup, then we have gone through the Bicep file structure, then other things like data types, parameters and variables. Similarly, we also talked about loops and conditions. How do you build up Azure Bicep module in the session 8? And then we discussed about function and operators, which is one of the essential, property of Azure Bicep. And then we looked into the, now we are going to look into the private module registry. So what do we mean by private module registry, and how, why someone has to use it, and what exactly the significance of it. So let's have a look on the previous code where we already used module. So if you see, let me just zoom it a bit. Yeah. So if you have a look on this code that we have been, sharing, so it's one of the previous session code, day 9, that we are looking into, and then we will look into the day 10, that is today's session. But before we get into the today's session, we just want to recap why we are, getting into the discussion of private module. So as you can see, we are already using module. So in the day 9 and previous to that, we already looked into how to define a module, how to use different, how to use modules for different purposes, and how to define a module. We have already looked into it. Now similarly, if you look at this, we use module keyword, and then we use a placeholder, the kind of a reference name, and then we go to the folder and where the Bicep module has been defined. So this is something called local module. So local modules are something that is available on the same computer, on some path, and that path needs to be given here, and then it will automatically figure it out how to use this module, and then it will help you to deploy the resources that are defined in this module. That is what the module is. But now we are talking about using a private registry. So instead of this local folder, there will be a private registry, there will be a web location from where this module will be coming, and then we can use it. Before we get into the details how to use it, let's discuss about why someone has to do this, like, why you should use it. So let's have a look on this. Let me share my screen here, and I hope it's visible. Just, yeah. So when we work in a collaborative environment, and as you can see, when you have this module on this, oops, not this one. Let me go to the other one. Oops, close this. Yeah. So you have this module on the local directory, and when you use this from local directory, that means someone who wants to use this module has to have this module file available on his on the computer, and and essentially they have to have access to this repository itself. That's how it's, someone can use this module. Now you might be having a team structure where you might not have. So for example, you might want to have someone to define this module, and then you, as a developer or as an infrastructure deployment team person, you just want to use those modules, and you don't really want, or maybe someone who is defining these modules may not want you to have access to these module source. So how these otherwise, you can just go there and change the module or change the properties of, things like that. You can change the SKU, and then you can deploy a different key vault altogether if you have access to this file. But suppose this needs not to be there. I mean, and in what situation you want to avoid that is, let me, yep. So suppose you have a kind of a situation where kind of just what happened, just give me a moment. It looks like I have zoomed it a bit more. Yep. And yeah, I just want to clear it up. Not this. Yeah. And yeah. So let's have a look, and let me zoom it a bit again. Yeah. So you have a team. Suppose you have this module here, and at the same place, someone like who is an application developer wants to use this module and deploy infrastructure in Azure. Now what happens is that in the current implementation that we have covered so far, this module source code is available to the app developer, and he can try to use it and try to change it, or whatever he want to do, he can do it. First thing, the kind of problem there. And the second problem is that why he has to take care, or why at all he has to worry about this part of source code, where he just have to use it. He does not have to worry about how this has been defined. However, in the current implementation, he can see what's happening there. So in such cases, what you can do is you can share this module instead of in the same repository. You can develop in a separate repository, and then you can publish it on, so not on the same file structure. So someone like a infrastructure engineer can, so a infra guy can work on this module on a separate repository. So it's a separate repository, it's a Git repository for example, and yeah, and then he pushes it to a private repository, and this repository is ACR, Azure Container Registry. Yeah, and then from there, app developer just need to reference this module from here, just like he will reference any container image or something like that in terms of container deployment. So here we are not talking about container, but we are talking about Bicep. But you can see the relationship here, that your module is not really, you are not using directly the source code. Instead, you are using a hosted version of it, and then your app developer need not to worry about what's getting defined, and then he is out of this loop where module development is done by some infra guy, infra developer, DevOps engineer, or whatever you can call it. So that kind of development loop gives you the isolation, security, and so many other benefits that you can have, and a better collaboration as well, where application developer worried about only application, infrastructure infrastructure developer or infrastructure engineers or DevOps engineers worried about only developing the module, making sure all the settings are fine, and then people can use those modules. That's the benefit of having a reusable infrastructure, and that's how you can do it. There are so many other benefits as well, like it enables your infrastructure engineering team or platform team to develop these modules and give these modules in a more self-serve model, such as developers can use AGD CLI. We have already covered AGD CLI as well, but yeah, I mean, in upcoming session we will again get into the advanced stuff where you will be able to do a pure platform or I would say internal developer platform kind of experience using these concepts. So much advanced right now. We just worried about, I mean, we are just discussing how do you share your modules instead of sharing the module source code itself. So far we have been sharing the source code itself, so let's have a look how to do that. And this is, I mean, we just discussed what is the benefit, but we have not yet covered how to do this. Okay, so let me open the VS Code and oops, not this one. Yep. Okay, so this is thing. Now let's have a look on the day10. So day10, I have already created a folder structure here. And in this folder structure, you can see I have two. Okay, yeah, I have two folders. One is platform team, one is apps team. So platform team is more about deploying the modules, developing the module and making sure that it is available to the developer. So let's have a look on the platform team kind of a demo, a kind of a example scenario. Your platform team necessarily do not only work on what you call ACR or just one module for a storage account. They might be working on so many other resources, but the idea here is that your platform team designs the modules, for example storage account, for example VM application, for example web apps, container apps, whatever the stack they want to define. So for example, your organization might have a standard configuration for using container apps, configured with a particular log analytics workspace, configured with a particular virtual network, configured with a particular subnet, so and so forth, configuration. And your platform engineer always wants to use that module by the application developer to deploy such resources. So what they can do is they can define these resources like a module, just like what we have been doing so far in our previous examples when we discussed about modules. So he will just define the module just like a pure proper bicep file. The naming convention can be anything, but here we are just worried about how to kind of define these modules. And then once he has defined the module, he needs a container registry to host it. So I have already created a ACR module as well for deploying a Azure container registry. So this Azure container registry will be a basic container registry just for our demonstration, but you can have this again more customized, like other properties that you may want, attaching the managed identity and so forth. But here for us it's a simple ACR that we are deploying, and what they will do is they will do two things. One is that they have to make sure that they have a ACR. So we have a ACR deployment using Bicep. So we are deploying a Bicep file which is kind of deploying ACR, and let's have a look. So what it is doing, that's yeah, okay. So in the ACR, if you see, we have a resource group that we want to create named ADP ACR RG, and then within that ACR RG we are going to create a ADP demo ACR Azure Container Registry, and that's what this particular command will do if we will run it. So let's go ahead and run it. So what it will do, it will go ahead and create, let me open Visual Studio, not this, okay, yeah, portal. While it is deploying, just go ahead, open the portal. So okay, still working. Let this continue. We'll just be back. Okay, looks like it has done its work. So here is our portal, and if I go here in the resource group, and go to the ADP ACR, and we have a ACR registry, and in this registry we have repositories, but we don't have anything over here as of now. So what we will do now, next thing is that, so one part of your infrastructure team, again, this can be more this can be more things that infrastructure team will do, like not just deploying a ACR. They might have so many other central resources, and they may want to combine this ACR as part of that that deployment. So for example, your team might already have a central deployment for resources like log analytics workspace, resources like monitoring alerts, resources like data collection rule for Azure Monitor. So those are the things which are more or less a centralized way of managing resources. So this ACR, where a team will host their modules, will also come into that kind of that kind of resource. So this can be part of that that deployment. One thing. The second thing is that team will have a ACR login server details that is required for deploying for publishing the module. So I'm going to collect this, and then if I do run, so I have this ACR thing. Let me just yeah, so it's visible. Okay, now the next thing that a platform team will do is they will there are equivalent AZ CLI command as well. So publish AZ Bicep module or AZ Bicep publish, something like that. And then what they will do is they will already have a module file that typically we have already been using, like storage account, and then they will target this to this registry. Have a look on this registry name, and we will use this. So if I maximize it, let me do this. So yeah, this is maximum it can do. Yeah, so if you'll have a look on this, this is called BR colon ACR login server, which is the value of this, and then Bicep module. So Bicep repository modules, and then we are saying the module name, and this is the version. Now this part is something that we are just making it very simple here, but this might be bit more a little bit, this might be having a little bit more logic when you deploy or publish this module on your registry, because you may want to have this version number dynamically changing on each deployment, or you may have a different kind of, you may have this particular task in a pipeline where you want to make sure that module only get published when all the resource, the module is a valid module. You have some linting rules, you have some kind of a sandbox deployment, maybe using this module to make sure that this module deploys the resources actually, and so on and so forth. So this is a very, very simple uses of this particular task, but this is something that you may have to figure out how exactly you want to make sure that when you publish a module, it is validated, it is a correct definition, and it has the outcome or expected outcome that it should produce. So for example, this module is for a storage account, so possibly we want to make sure that whenever someone is using it, they are getting the storage account out of it when they are when they are deploying resources using this module. So those kind of validation you can run. Here we are not getting into that. Maybe we will cover those in upcoming session when we do the CI/CD pipeline maybe. But again, this is something case to case, and then again you have to make sure you are covering your use case. Now here we are just going to publish this module. So when we publish this module, what will happen is that it will go ahead and publish this module on the repository. Let me open that one. Yep. So it will soon appear here. So as you can see, the module is here, and it is just like any other container image. This one is Bicep module, and you have a path to it, just like you will use any Docker container image path. URI, you have this URI from where you can refer this and can use this to deploy a storage account. Now how to use it? So if we go to so this is pretty much what a platform team will do. They will develop their module, they will validate the module, and they will deploy the module to a ACR registry, which is a private registry. And then again, for our case, our ACR is very simple. It does not have any security in terms of virtual network and so on and so forth, but you may have a little bit of more complexity there. But once you have the module, platform team is communicating that you have your module. Then apps team, which can be on a different repository. Here we are demonstrating in this different folder, but you can think of apps team in a different repository, and all they will have is that one Bicep file. And so I have already created it, so let's have a look on this file. So they already have this module location, they know it, and they want to use it. They don't have to define the path. So if you remember previously, what we were doing is we were accessing this module with a local file path. But here what we are saying is we want to use this module from this path and this version, and and then rest of it is pretty much same. So if you don't do the parameter, and if I just do, then you can see that it is automatically detecting that there is a storage account name that needs to be provided, and I'll provide that. And then it will say you need to provide environment name. So it will discover all the parameter that has to be provided with this module to be able to use it. Unless you provide it, you can't use this thing. And then all you have to do is, of course, you have to create a resource group so that you can define the scope. And we have already covered this part in the module discussion itself, how to use a module. So here there is no much change apart from you have this module on a internet location. It's not even internet, it's a private registry. Now since I have the access to this private registry, I can use it. But this is something that you can do RBAC control, you can do the networking and all those stuff that you do with any ACR. So for example, if you go to the ACR, you can define who can access this ACR. So for example, what applications team can use this module. You can define the permissions in terms of policies. You can kind of have the managed identity attached to it. You can have a networking associated with it, like which network should be allowed to use it. Do you want to have it on internet, public access, or do you want to have private access? So those things you can define. That is the one benefit. The second benefit is that anyone can use it if they can access this path. So they don't really have to have the physical file that contains this module, for example, in the previous cases, and they cannot see what's defined there. What is the SKU for this storage account, and they cannot change it again, the SKU or other properties to be able to kind of define or deploy a different kind of resource than a standard resource in your organization. And then all they have to do is deploy a kind of a tradition, what do you call, like a typical bicep deployment. So I will just go ahead and deploy this apps team app.bicep, and what it will do is it will create a resource group with this name myapp.rg, and think of it, this storage account is part of one of your app infrastructure. It can be container app, it can be virtual machines, it can be web app, it can be function app. I mean, whatever you want to create, and if your team has a module for it, you can definitely start using it and then create it. But here we will just demonstrate how to create this resource group, and then you can create a storage account by using the module from a private registry. So we'll go there and we'll run it, and then it will go to the Azure, get the module definition, and then start the deployment. And if we look at the portal, we have a look on portal, and if you go to the resource group, you can see that I have not here, not yet. Let's wait. It's still working. Possibly. Yep. So my app RG is here, and in my app RG, you can see there is a storage account created, and you have the storage account with the same definition what we had in the module. But the idea here is that you can deploy a module. I mean, you can deploy a resource using a module hosted on a private registry, and that's how you kind of have a small app team, platform team architecture. Now this is just the beginning of a kind of this isolation. You keep on adding things like Azure deployment environment or Azure developer CLI, and then you can keep on improving that experience of a kind of a self-service or internal developer portal or internal developer environment, or a platform, internal developer platform, whatever you can call it, experience using native Bicep and Azure tooling. We will get into the those stuffs like Azure deployment environment, how to use that by combining all this concept, and then we will get into the stuff like Azure developer CLI, where you will be using this Azure developer CLI to kind of deploy the resources from a shared module or the complete shared template itself from Azure deployment environment. So yeah, I mean, in upcoming session we will get into improving this user experience, but it's again based on what your team needs. If you have a very simple few resource deployment happening in your team, and you don't really need those advanced tooling, then this is a kind of a beginning or a starting point of your this kind of a separation of concern in infrastructure as code. This is it for today. Thanks for watching. Let me know how you like it, and do you want to add something or you want me to cover something else. Just let me know. Thanks for watching.